Do you remember back in 2007 and 2008 when people were allowed to say whatever they wanted in Modern Warfare and World at War lobbies? Do you remember it being the peak of Xbox 360 and PS3 gaming at the time? We got so many good games like Mass Effect, Bioshock, Portal, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Assassin's Creed. Some of my favorites. In 2008, when we got even better games like GTA 4, Fallout 3, Dead Space, and many more, I'm probably forgetting to mention. When every game had this weird color palette over it, this weird yellowish, grayish, dull color palette, making it feel realistic and down to earth. When I say 2007 and 2008, what I think about is one game that gave me that specific, distinct feeling of the late 2000s, and that game is this one right here. That game is Raycevick Grid, which is a 2008 simcade game developed and published by the good people over at Codemasters, who are responsible for such great games such as Dirt, Dirt 2, and Dirt 3, and some F1 games that I used to play back in the day. I know this isn't a new video concept or a video that's been done already by many people and way better, but I thought I would give it a try and just tell you about this game that I really like. Grid is hailed as one of the racing game changes back in the day in 2008 when racing games weren't really having an identity. It was either arcade or simulation game. We had Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsport already, so that was just simulation type gameplay, and we already had arcade games such as Need for Speed Undercover, which wasn't really good and didn't really meet the things we needed at the time. Grid came along just in time to change the landscape by having its weird simcade game that was in the mainstream for the first time. What I'm trying to say is that, in my opinion, at the time, we didn't really have a simcade game at that particular time. Instead, what we had was just two different genres of racing games, just simulation and arcade games that were just that, and everyone was already getting bored of it at the time. And this was at the time pushing the limits of everything, where technology was becoming better. We could do actual HD graphics, we could have larger maps, better sound design, better gameplay, more features included in games, along with a variety of cars you can have in the game, just putting more things into the game that we had never seen at the time before, along with very fun race types that we hadn't really been able to play with it the way we did in Grid. Having all these features at hand and all these race types and cars, it really made you feel immersed in the game and feel like a real race car driver. But before we get into Grid, we need to go back a while to see how this game even came to be, to see where the race driver name came from and why it's not just called Grid. So let's go back a while to where we had the PS2 and the original Xbox ruling the market at the time, where we had 3D graphics that we thought was so amazing, and I wasn't even born yet at that time, where it all started for the Race Driver series. Before Grid, we had Toka Race Driver, which was another racing game that was developed by Codemasters and was released for the Xbox, PS2, and the Windows PC. The Toka is essentially a predecessor to the Race Driver Grid series, where at the time, even with Gran Turismo, it was still seen as one of the best racing games of 2002. The best racing game you could get that could be simulation. But before it had the title of Race Driver, Codemasters at the time already had released 3 previous games in the Toka series with great driving gameplay at the time and even to this day, and great graphics and car selections that could hold up to the. With all this, Toka was a pretty good racing game that you could ask for in 2002. After the release of the Toka Race Driver series, the fourth one, it spawned two more sequels from 2004 to 2006. Unfortunately, Codemasters decided to stop making these Toka games because they wanted to shift their focus towards other franchises in their catalog, focus on future projects that they wanted to do, as the industry at the time was changing and Codemasters had to choose to change with it and invest resources into developing new titles and expanding more their existing franchises. With this shift in focus, we might have lost a cult classic game, but we gained an even better cult classic game in 2007 when Codemasters released their first Dirt game, which was received as one of the best rally games at the time. And even today, it's still seen as the pioneers of rally games that really changed the rally genre at the time from what we had, which was WRC, which was a good game, but with Dirt being released, it aimed to change and give us more features, more cars, more rally stages to race on, and even Rally X Cross, where we could do rally races which were traditional and more circuit-like. And even after 2007, in 2008, Codemasters decided to go back to back and release another banger in my favorite game, Grid, which is officially titled as Raycevick Grid, proving that it is a successor to the Toka Race Driver series. Over the past years, after the initial release of Grid and seeing the success that it had, obviously Codemasters tried to follow this up by releasing sequels to Grid and trying to recapture the magic that they had back in 2008. Try to make this Grid a new sort of Toka Race Driver that they had back in the day. With this decision, it got kind of confusing because I've played Grid 2 and I think I've follow up Grid Autosport, and then there's also Grid Motorsport, and then there's Grid on the App Store, which I don't know if that's the second one or the third one or the fourth one. And then in 2020, they tried to come back with another Grid that wasn't really received well, but that's a video for another time. Right now, let's talk about what was happening in 2008 when Grid was being released. Of course, we all remember this as being the peak of the seventh generation of gaming and the consoles we had at the time. At least that's what I think. I think this was definitely a simpler and more creative time where developers could be able to release any game or any idea that they could fully realize into a game and put it out into the world. At this time, technology was also advancing, having higher graphics, more processing power, and better tracing, better lights, better shadows, better sound design, more space and bigger fans, bigger consoles, just everything getting better at the time. We were obviously going into the 2010s, so obviously this was the time for everyone to make a game look good and feel good and go into the next generation of the band. This was also the time when developers started to push the boundaries of the consoles we had at the time. Things like things like huge maps and realistic graphics. And for the racing genre, this meant getting each feel for each car as close to real as possible and getting each sound for each car as close to real as possible. Getting as many real life tracks as you can to put in and expanding the amount of cars you can race with inside the game. This also meant that HD graphics was standard and realistic sound design were becoming standard for all games, but mostly the simulation style games, including racing games. With earlier titles such as Forza Motorsport and Gran Turismo, which had already done a lot of this even before this time where we were pushing these boundaries, Codemasters had to take a step up and make their game distinctive from the games that we already had. And this meant going in a different direction, going sort of half and half between simulation and arcade style, where we had the opportunity to have real life racetracks with arcade handling and have crazier racing events to take part in, with diverse racing types and locations to choose from. For example, one second you could be doing a togi run on a mountain in Japan, racing your pro-tuned cars, trying to stay on the track while also trying to take over your opponent. And the next you could be fighting for your life in a demo derby doing a figure of eight, trying to total every car you see in front of you and trying to get that first place. Or you could be in a drift event, getting as close to the cones as possible, trying to get as many points as possible to win the event. Or getting in open wheel cars, touring cars, pro-tuned cars, and so much more I'll probably forget to mention, because there's just so much in this game that I really like about it, and being able to race them around any track you want that has been provided in the game. Even going so far as to drive prototype cars and concept cars that haven't even been released yet, such as the concept Ford Mustang and the Dodge Challenger. And even featuring a full Le Mans race where you can actually sit for a whole 24 hours doing a full 24 hours of Le Mans in real life in Grid. So let's talk about the core gameplay of Grid and how it holds up today. Like many racing games, Grid obviously tries to offer an immersive and intense racing experience that has you on the edge of your seat, fighting for every corner you're taking and every event you participate in, trying to get that #1 podium. And as I've said a lot, Grid has a lot of gameplay features that it offers. It offers a blend of arcade style accessibility, good for anyone, any casual player to pick up and play, and offers a good amount of in-depth simulation style gameplay when you really get into it. Let's talk handling. One of the most important aspects in a racing game, other than the racing cars and the tracks you're obviously, it's the feel of the car that really matters. So how does Grid do when it comes to handling? In terms of handling, I think Grid has given me the perfect example of what a sim kit should be and should feel like. Given Codemasters' past experience with the Toka Racing series and the Dust series that they released a year before Grid was released, they managed to blend in the handling from the Dirt game that they and probably implement the handling from rally games into the tracks we have now on Grid. The handling doesn't feel too arcadey, where your car is sliding around all the time, every corner you take, and it doesn't feel too simulation style, where it's too stiff and you're fighting the car for control. The handling is responsive and has that perfect match of technical ability and easy accessibility, where you can pick up and play it with any friends you have. This is also displayed in the variety of cars that Grid offers you to drive around with and have fun with and wreck and race around in every track you want to. And if you feel you're not good enough over racer and you're crashing or keep messing up, then Grid has the perfect feature for you. This right here is the rewind feature, which has been implemented from Grid into so many more other games that we have now, and even simulation games that we have now that Codemasters has kept on implementing it. Dirt Rally 2.0 and more games that have come out since the release of Grid. Now, the infamous rewind feature has become infamous with SimCade games, almost being in every SimCade game you could think of, being in Dirt 2, 3, 4, 5, Forza Horizon 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You get the picture. Nowadays it's everywhere, but I'm not going to go in depth with the rewind feature. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that today Grid has to be one of the most in-depth racing games of all times, just based on the features that it gives you alone. With the addition of the diverse racing cultures and racing disciplines that Codemasters puts into Grid, from togeys, demo derby, drift battles, midnight togeys, pro-tuned cars, pro-muscle, touring cars, open-wheel, Le Mans, GT Club, GT1, GT2, prototype racing, and even racing with prestige supercars. It's had all of it, and given the selection of cars that you can choose from in this game, it was perfect and it fits the game very perfectly. Listen, and I know I've said it a lot, but I honestly think that this game was really one of the best at the time of its generation. Along with the locations and tracks that are offered in Grid, this game gives a variety of fantastic tracks from all over the world, such as from Japan, America, Europe, and other parts of the world. Some tracks are technical, which test your ability to handle the car and drive in a great manner, test the skill that you've acquired playing the game. And some are just tracks where you go full throttle with minimum turning, just enjoying the feeling of speed that the game gives you. The visuals and the late 2000s aesthetic that the game has really makes it also feel authentic to the time and make it feel like a relic of its time. With that yellow, murky, grayish color palette that was over it, it really helped Grid stand out from the rest of the games at the time and helping go along with the visuals and cars and tracks that it provided. And now that we've gone over the major things about the game, let's talk about the career mode, because what's a simulation style game without a career mode? So Grid's career mode is called Grid World, where you step into the shoes of a race car driver and a team leader, managing your own team, hiring and firing drivers, teammates, customizing liveries of the cars you're driving, adding your team brands, getting sponsorships on the cars and in the races you're doing. So at the time, Grid took a feature from Gran Turismo, which was the license feature, sort of, where the racer had to finish in a pole position to get reputation in order to advance to the next license level. And Grid had 3 licenses that you had to race in. These were the American license, the Euro license, and the Japanese license. Racing in each respective license meant racing in each of its locations, like the Euro tracks, the American tracks, and the Japanese tracks, and also racing in the disciplines that the region is known for. Like in America, you do demo derbies, you do street circuits. In the European license, you do the technical tracks, you do the Nürburgring and other tracks in Europe. And in Japan, you have drift events. You go into toges, midnight toges, and you just do the Japanese racing disciplines. Having this in the game really expands on the career mode, gives it more variety, keeps you wanting to play more, getting that pole position and racing more with different cars, just expanding how you're playing the game and not just giving you one straight way to play the game, giving you a variety of choices to me where you want to race, where you want your reputation to really be built and big. But with all that being said, that's about as much depth as it has really. It has some other features like sponsorships, which is when you can gain and acquire sponsorships, put them on your cars and then race them, and they give you like a certain objective like finish in third or higher. And the story mode doesn't really have a rich gripping story. It's just you race, you gain popularity, and you try to be the number one race team in the world and the number one driver in the world. Basically, you create your team name, you hire and fire more teammates, you see the disciplines that they have, and I think that it's fleshed out enough to someone engaged in the game. You buy cars and race them in different events, or when you first start, you have other teams to get money by the cars that you want and take part in whichever races you want to choose from. It's okay, it's pretty straightforward, but there is one rival for the car we have to beat and be the top one. This is the Revving team, who's always on top of every leaderboard, each season dominating, and we have to try and dethrone them. Race Driver Grid is an immersing, addicting, exhilarating, beautiful and fun racing experience you can't afford to miss. The best so far, said by Game Focus in 2008 when Grid first released. Grid has received a Metascore of 87, and that just shows you that at the time it was well received by the public and everyone who enjoyed racing games. And even to this day, it still holds up as one of the best racing games you can get and play. Okay, so the reason for this video existing is to just bring light to a game I really enjoyed and to just make something new that I wanted to do. As I have already seen a lot of other different views and different videos already on the same topic, but I just wanted to make it my own. That, and also showing you how it's ultimately changed the racing gaming world forever and cementing its legacy as one of the first pillars of modern racing games that we have to date. In my opinion, I think that Grid set the mood for the next generation of modern racing games at the time because of its extensive new features and the perfect balance of immersive simulation, arcadey gameplay that we all love today. I like this game, and I think that whether you're younger or older, I think you should all give it a try if you really enjoy racing games. I really recommend it, and I think that's going to be it for me. Thank you for watching the video. Like, subscribe and share if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.